Welcome and good morning. Welcome to the NuSpecies Live. I'm Jillian.
I'm Aston. Good morning.
All right. Thank you all for being here. I see a lot of you have already joined. You are welcome to start putting any questions or comments that you have into the chat. I'm going to introduce us to anyone who is new to NuSpecies or to our Q&A. NuSpecies is a natural health company. Many years ago, Aston invented our flagship nutritional and herbal formula. Since then, he's invented many more formulas, mostly plant-based, some not, all depending on what he has discovered over time, different clients need. And all of our formulas were designed by Aston to help your body be as resilient as possible against some of the toughest of health challenges. Our formulas are a really important tool for your body to fix itself, to empower itself, and to keep you as strong as possible, along with a healthy lifestyle and your medical care if you already are engaged in that. But we have to host this Q&A every Saturday at 10 a.m. We find it imperative in order to help each of you and us to learn what we need to learn to make good health decisions, because a good health choice for you may not be a good health choice for someone else. And we sift through all of that complexity on this Q&A every Saturday at 10 a.m. So thank you so much for being here with us. Our agenda is your agenda. So we prioritize your questions. You can always submit questions in advance on the NuSpecies app. So if you go to your app store on your phone and you download the NuSpecies free app, you will see on the homepage a prompt where you can submit a question. So if you're in the middle of your week and you're thinking you're not going to remember that question by the time you get to the Saturday Q&A, you can just submit your question right there on the app.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're picking up from where we left off last week.
Yes, we
And
should.
we will give a recap and we'll move into it. But again, our presentation is secondary. It's just what's on our minds and what we want to talk about if you aren't asking anything, but we will prioritize your questions. So good morning to Diane and Trevor. Hi, Janet. Hi, June. Good morning, Maxine. Thank you all for being here. Anyone else, if you don't have any questions, that's fine, but you're always welcome to just say good morning. Let us know you're here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So last week, and we can jump right in if we want, unless do we have any announcements?
No, I just want to reiterate what you said, that we do this for NuSpecies and especially and particularly for NuSpecies. So it's our way of meeting with you in this, what I call intimate setting, to share knowledge, share all the information we have about health. And health is not just physical, health is also mental, and health is also spiritual. And the reason why spiritual is so important is what I said last week, that only 5% of the whole universe, including Earth, is known. 95% is completely unknown. And guess what? That 95% is invisible. It's their forces, energy, and a lot of us would say that's part of spirituality. So that's why spirituality is so important. And one final statement on that, only 1% of our entire body, look at me, look at Jillian, only 1% of our bodies is matter, mass, physical mass, physical matter, 1%. The rest of the 99%, actually it's over 99%, is energy, invisible. And that's why spiritual health is so important, because without good spiritual health and good mental health, our physical health will just fall apart. And that's what happened to all of us. And we'll talk more about that as we move along.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, when we were talking about the root causes of diseases, which is where we talked about last week,
Mhm.
we didn't get to complete that conversation, but we can do a little bit of a recap. So, one morning Aston sat me down. He's like, I want to talk to you about the root causes of diseases. And I made some notes and I bullet pointed metabolism, immune system, hormones, and mitochondria. Now, as we always explain, our body systems and the organs that belong to them are all working together, and they facilitating chemical reactions
Yep.
and all sorts of functions
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously. So when we list these four things, we aren't necessarily trying to isolate them, but we are just breaking out their functions, and when these systems become stressed or pressure is applied on them, or
Mm-hmm.
they aren't given what they need to function, mistakes can start to happen. Things can start to trip up. And that is the real root cause of disease that will eventually break down and create symptoms that will then eventually form a nice little package that someone who can, invent a new disease based on a set of symptoms will give it a name, and then hopefully a treatment. But long before those symptoms occur, we are trying to help you understand what's really happening in the body when things start to go awry, long before those symptoms show up. And we think that visual is helpful to you because, like I said, we're making lots of decisions every single day that impact our health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy to think, and it's funny because on the show last week, I was saying, like, for so long we've said everything in moderation is fine. We were having dinner with my mother a couple of nights ago, and she has been dealing with cancer for 8 years now. Um, and
God
she,
bless her.
yes,
And stage 4, and she's
yes,
still kicking.
yes, she was diagnosed 8 years ago with stage 4 lung cancer and is still stage 4 lung cancer 8 years later. But it's a nonstop revisiting of the topic of lifestyle and diet. And even she then said, well, everything in moderation. And I was like, no, not when you're healing, mom, not when you're healing. That's not okay. We have to actually be on a healing diet, which is much more strict than when you're just maintaining your health.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, when we have that kind of mindset, we're making so many decisions every day that impact our health, from what we put in our mouth to what we rub into our skin or put in our body, the clothing we wear, the furniture we buy, the hair products we use, deodorant and body products. I mean, just so many things, the air that we're breathing, sometimes it's our choice, sometimes it isn't. Whether we have habits that are not good for our health that we're choosing. I can go on, but the point is, it's easy to make one of those choices and say, well, it's just this one time. It's just this one choice today. But really, we're making many of these choices all day long, every single day, and they compound. And it's easier to make a better choice when you actually understand the underlying consequence of that choice, that maybe you're creating a little too much pressure. Maybe you are allowing one extra trip up that just kind of tips the scales. So last week we touched everything overlaps, but we mostly, I feel like, touched on metabolism, immune system, a little bit of hormones. So today I think we'll solidify those points and also talk about mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Aston? And Aston can change that if he
Well, yes, as you said, you said they're all intertwined. Everything is related. Literally, we're related to the sun, the universe. The sun gives us life. It gives us vitamin D. It gives the plants energy to give us the vitamins and minerals and plants and foods in the ground or above the ground. So if you think about it, everything is connected. And if we don't see the connection, is because of lack of knowledge. And, one biblical principle that always resonates with me, and my grandmother always talk about it. And that one biblical principle is that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So everything that Jillian just said, we compound, we make our life a lot more complex. We make our health a lot more complex than it should be. And it's because of lack of knowledge, what we eat, what we drink, what we breathe in. And when I think about it, even for myself, we don't protect ourselves as well as we could because of habits, bad habits, because it's something we learn in TV or in the news or in a magazine. And a lot of that information, especially related to foods, we just gobble it up and we don't see what's happening to our metabolic processes. And that's how when we eat a piece of nutrient, piece of food that is healthy, our bodies break it down. That's a metabolic process. Our bodies break it down and convert it into energy. And the energy is what every single cell, the 30 trillion cells that are in our bodies, every single cell needs that energy. And every single cell contributes to our energy, our life, our lifespan, our health, or to our mental state, our spiritual state. So that's why eating the way we teach you to eat, even if we don't eat that way, even if Joe's mother doesn't eat that way, she does. She's doing a whole lot better with that. That's the way we should eat, the way we teach you. And yes, it's hard to do it, but even people who are most healthy, who come to us, for me, it seems to me that the healthier people tend to eat better. And I could see why they eat better. That's why they're so healthy. And the people who aggressively pursue good nutrition, good health, from my experience doing this, about 30 years, we were a charity before we became a company to help people. Those people are the ones who live the healthiest and they seem to live the longest. And since we started NuSpecies, I don't know of any of them who have died. Some of them are right now in their 80s and 90s. So good nutrition is really important. And that's the metabolic processes that we talked about last week.
Which is funny because we were talking to my mom, and actually what's interesting is my mom's downfall is actually not ignorance. It's actually she's constantly reading and educating herself, and there is just so much conflicting information. So much.
Right.
I remember at one point she read this massive book, and like in the center of the book, it was written by a doctor who's probably very well accomplished and probably has a lot of really helpful, meaningful things to share. None of us are all 100% right all the time. And nutritional science is constantly evolving. It's a new science, but comparatively. But what's interesting is like in the center of this book, he just listed a ton of foods or things to eat and drink that are anti-cancer. And one of the things he had listed was Cabernet Sauvignon. And so he puts in there Cabernet Sauvignon because it has these certain antioxidants or whatever that are good for cancer. And so then my mom was like, she wasn't drinking wine all the time, but she definitely, if she drank wine, was like, I'm going to get Cabernet Sauvignon. And, you know, we often, we're not experts in any one particular field, but I think we're really good at like never losing sight of the big picture. That's kind of our specialty. That's our expertise. And alcohol is a carcinogen. So even if it has certain antioxidants in it, if the delivery system itself is dangerous for you, it doesn't matter what else is coming along with it. And so, it took years for me to convince my mom, like, I don't agree with that. I know I'm not a doctor. I'm not as accomplished as this man, but I just think he's not getting this thing right. He's looking at the individual parts and not the whole, that it's probably not the best thing for you to be consuming. And so she's always educating herself and often learning things that are contradictory to what we would like. So, she isn't doing anything wrong in the sense that she's educating herself. She's getting this information from doctors and professionals who otherwise are probably doing great work. Um, but then what we'll find, and especially with our clients, is people will tend to like hone in on trying to get permission for like that one thing they just don't want to let go of. And so maybe they don't actually look at the broader advice of this person and they just kind of focus on that like one thing. Well, I was hoping for an excuse to keep eating, salmon or drinking wine. And so there's my excuse.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, what was funny was when we're constantly having conversations with mom to
For years.
to go back over like, okay, what do you think is healthy now? And like, let's reset. And so at dinner, it was a struggle for her to find something to eat because she's always just like, oh, I'm eating with Aston and Julian. Should I make the decision they're gonna like, or should I order what I want? I always know she's stressed about that when she eats with us.
I must say though, I must say about her, I don't know if she's listening. She's probably listening or sleeping. It's after 10. She's probably up. But I must say, to her that she's been taking NuSpecies for years, especially after she got sick. And she's given us 2 testimonials. They're probably on YouTube. You can go back and look at them. But I must say, Jill, that I have never seen her more dedicated to taking NuSpecies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say to you, Mommy, I've never seen you so maniacal about taking your NuSpecies and taking it properly. She's so dedicated, and I think that's part of the reason why she's, dedicated as in taking care of herself, being more conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she's as distracted about all those books and magazines and all those stuff she used to read. I think she, we're able to simplify things for her, and she's doing well. God bless her.
What was interesting was as we were going through the menu and kind of hashing out what she should order, it was like, well, what about this? But I thought I couldn't eat that, and maybe I shouldn't have this, or I think I can have that. It's good for me, right? Aston was explaining metabolism and how when you're eating something your body can't metabolize, you're creating stress on the system. You're allowing damage to occur. And she asked a good question, which was like, well, but if I'm eating something my body is struggling to digest, won't I feel that? Won't I feel pain? Won't I feel discomfort? And no, you won't. Maybe in extreme cases where something is really disagreeing with you, but actually there's so much damage happening that you can't feel it all.
Right. I mean, let's talk about the apple. But yes, totally agree. We're going to segue into that. So we eat it. My mother used to say, eat an apple a day. I think she got it from. I think I've seen it all over the internet now. And
apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Right. Exactly. So we eat an apple, which is an apple actually has a lot of minerals and vitamins. So it's truly one of those superfoods that we should all eat. It's like the sweet potato or foods like that. So you eat an apple and it has to be digested. So it's healthy. It's a superfood. Speaking of digestion and metabolism, it has to be digested in the stomach and the small intestine. Now, if the stomach and the small intestine, if the digestive system is damaged, we eat that apple. What do you think is going to happen to that apple? That apple can now hurt us. It can now create inflammation. And when the digestive system and the metabolic system, when they're damaged, now we eat that nutrient, we eat that apple. And now our cells are being denied of the nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, the enzymes, the phytonutrients to support those cells. So what's going to happen after you even eat an apple? Those cells are now going to start getting sick. Last week, June mentioned chronic inflammation. That is the beginning process of chronic inflammation. So the damage to our digestive system, which is start from the beginning, our digestive system could be from breathing in chemicals, eating foods that have chemicals, or doing like my sisters. I'm gonna bring my sisters in now. When I was a kid, and I have older sisters who could be, my parents, believe it or not. And thank God they're still alive. And I hope they're listening. But when I was a kid, and they used to do their hair, they used to have this curling iron, and they used some chemicals and put in their ear to get their hair straightened out. When they used to do their hair on a Saturday to go to church on Sunday, everybody has to leave the house because those chemicals, the fumes were so strong.
Wow.
So strong. And one day I'll tell you about the health of my family. But the bottom line is that a lot of men and women get issues because of what we eat, what we breathe in. People wonder, why did I get sick? I eat healthy. I exercise. I do all the things I should do, but I have high blood pressure. I have cancer. Where did this cancer come from? This is not me. Those are words I hear from people. But when our metabolic system is broken down, everything is damaged. The immune system is damaged. The chronic inflammation is going to set in. And sometimes, as you say, we may not even know that all these things are happening. because you might feel tired, you might feel fatigue, you might feel aches and pains, but you go to the doctor, you do your blood tests, and it's perfect. But the body is still disintegrating.
My mom's blood work is perfect.
Could you talk about that from day one?
Mm-hmm.
So
She's had, like, when she did chemo, things got a little wonky, but
then
really
they
only kind of expected what you'd expect to see during chemo. But then when she stopped it, went right back to normal. And even now, she just went through some radiation, and we just did labs. And there's expected side effects from radiation, but the doctor, who I think she's a wonderful radiation oncologist, wanted to check for any other thing that could be causing symptoms and not just assume it's the radiation. So she ran every vitamin test, every thyroid, CMP. She did all the stuff, and everything came back normal and beautiful. So, you have stage 4 cancer 8 years in, and your labs still look perfect, but obviously you're not perfect.
And as I recall, because I review all those labs even from the early years of her diagnosis, because she was diagnosed with stage 4, her labs are always perfect. Her CBCs perfect, the metabolic panel perfect, her lipids panel, the whole lab was always perfect. And this, is amazing that you bring that up.
I
So
want to get back to the apple though, because I think because I was taking notes, I missed something you were saying. I think I missed a connection. You were saying eating an apple can cause metabolic problems.
So what I was saying is that if you eat even healthy foods, but because the digestive system and the metabolic system are damaged,
Oh, okay.
the body is not able to process that apple. So a lot of that apple are going to sit in the small intestine and the colon and create inflammation. And that inflammation can further damage the body. So I'm trying to show you the
So should they say
disease genesis and progression. Go ahead. Yes.
Should they say F it and go get KFC? No, right? You should still eat the apple, but you have to fix the underlying problem.
Yes.
Don't give people an excuse to not eat apples. Okay.
Okay. I was getting to my conclusion.
I know what you're all thinking. I know what you're thinking.
I'm scrubbing away. I'm scrubbing away to the conclusion.
I have to be the voice of the people.
Yes,
they can't be heard here in the.
Well, I give the bad news and you give the good news. But that's the beginning of chronic inflammation. So even a lot of you're eating healthy foods and you're still sick. You're getting more sick. You're doing your green juices. You're doing all these things. You're getting more sick only because of the underlying condition. The metabolic system, the digestive system are destroyed. So when you come to NuSpecies and we make a recommendation to you, and yes, we have 3 or more formulas in the protocol we recommend for you, it's because each one is doing something completely different. And all you have to do is to ask us. If you walk out with 6 bottles or 8 bottles, it's because something is radically wrong. It's not just the metabolic. It's the immune system. It's the hormonal system. Is the enzymes that the body needs. It's the stress from the chronic inflammation that is damaging other organs or body systems. So when we make a recommendation to you, that's why when I have clients all over the world, not just the Caribbean or Africa, but even right here in the United States, they would take 1 or 2 herbs or plants, and they have cancer, and they believe they're doing themselves good. They would take 2 or 3 or 4, whatever the case is. They have no idea that they're not even addressing the underlying issues they have. So I'm saying this to say, when someone has a diagnosis, when someone has abnormalities in their lab report or their MRI or their CT scans, the issues they're seeing there probably were developing over many years. And that's why doctors don't even use the word cure anymore. Because when you walk in with cancer, even if it's early stage, there's no doctor I know of, and I know quite a few doctors, who will tell you that yes, you're going to get cured from doing the surgery. Yes, you're going to get cured from doing the chemo radiation.
Mm.
They don't know, but some people do get help. So that's the truth. That's a fact. But they can't tell everybody that because they themselves don't know, because they don't know because of what we just said. All the underlying conditions, the destruction of the metabolic system, the digestive system, the immune system, the hormonal system, the enzyme system. The enzyme system is how our bodies disintegrate food into nutrients so our cells can use those nutrients for good health. All those systems are damaged. So surgery, radiation, chemo, immunotherapy, all those medical treatments are not designed to address any of those issues. So what you should do when you sit with your doctor and you have high blood pressure or cancer, you should have a dialogue with your doctor and find out what is the medication for, what can you expect from the medication, so that you can decide what else you have to do based on what we're saying to you today, what you can do at home to build up these systems. So I want to say this before we get back to foods and diets and lifestyle and spirituality and stress. I want to say that now you know why when someone did surgery or radiation and chemo and they do their PET scan and no cancer is seen in the PET scan, but a year later, 6 months later, 2 years later, there's a resurgence of cancer, and now it's in different places, different organs. Now you know why. That happens primarily, if not only, because the root causes of cancer, they were still there. The metabolic process, you should write them down. The digestive process, the immune process, the enzyme process, the hormonal process, those were all destroyed. And guess what? We haven't even mentioned the genome, because that's what cancer is. It's the mutation of a gene or genes in our DNA. So we didn't even mention that. So now you know the root causes of all diseases, people, all diseases, whether you're born with them or not, all diseases, those are the root causes. Those systems were damaged or destroyed to the point where the body could no longer support those body functions. You could no longer digest the healthy apple properly, the healthy green juice or smoothie properly, because the digestive system, the metabolic system are damaged.
Mm.
That's why. And now, unless Jill has some more comments on that, we can segue into stress and the various types of stress that are worse than what I just mentioned.
We'll
Way
pause.
worse.
We'll pause for a question from Diana. She said, asked in the other days, China and Russia said they have the vaccine against cancer. Is that true? I told my friend that I don't believe it.
I've been hearing about that for at least my whole life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have heard that, the governments, in the world or the United States have a cure, for whatever diseases, including cancer, and he's never serviced. What I can tell you, I can ask you one simple question. I'm not saying this live because I don't know if it's true. What I'm gonna ask you is, anyone you've ever known who had high blood pressure or diabetes, two of the most basic, I think, diseases in the universe that plague humanity, and they're on medication. Have you ever seen them gotten off medication? Have you ever seen any of those diseases go away because of medication? And when you compare high blood pressure or diabetes or any of those issues to cancer, cancer is a disease of the heart and soul of life, our DNA and genes. So unless the vaccine or medication or whatever it is can cure that genomic damage or mutation, if they can cure cancer, then they can cure everything.
Yeah, that's very interesting just because there are so many types of cancer. Even like types of lung cancer and types of breast cancer, and so if you just go through every organ or body system and then
And they're
look
different.
at all the types, and I
And they're
I'm
different.
not even sure how they could say we have a vaccine unless they were talking about a vaccine for a very specific type of cancer. But as Aston said, and I like how you put it, like the heart and soul of life, it's because cancer is really an environment that develops in the body that allows these symptoms like tumors or nodules or cancer cells to develop. So how one vaccine would change an entire environment, I don't know.
Like it's a virus or it's a bacteria or parasite.
Sounds
About
like an oversimplification or maybe one part in the process of helping to fight cancer medically, but we also know that um, lifestyle wise, there are many ways to fight cancer as well. So that are even better than a medication because they're true changes to the environment that's allowing the cancer to flourish.
10 years ago, a cure was announced for sickle cell. And we have at NuSpecies many clients who have taken that vaccine or that medication, and they still have sickle cell. What I have learned later is that they didn't mean it's gonna go away.
Mm,
What they mean, they have a treatment that can make someone who has sickle cell to live better. They
like,
still have the underlying disease. They
mm,
still suffer with it. They still have the consequences. Maybe the number of crises are minimized or limited. The hospital emergency room visits
mm,
are, um, but
yeah.
the news reported that, but it was not a cure. It was just another treatment, like all the other treatments they have for sickle cell.
Right. And vaccine doesn't always mean cure, right? So when we hear the word vaccine, yes, there are a lot of cases where vaccines have eradicated
But
infectious bacteria, but like you can get a flu vaccine every year and still get the flu because the strains mutate and cancer also mutates. So I could imagine maybe they do have a vaccine that doesn't necessarily mean it's a cure. Maybe it's like Aston said, something that mitigates disease or
right.
helps maybe a healthy person
Well,
not develop. We don't. Vaccine is very high level. I'd love to hear if you could email us the link,
are
Diana.
just
That'd be great. I'd love to see the reports of what they're saying exactly. Maybe we could write an article on it just to help people better understand what they mean.
right. And I know, by the way, if we don't see the study itself,
Hmm.
then we won't count it as anything other than another spam.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to see the studies.
Right.
They have to show the studies,
And we're
and
talking about two countries who were probably not very transparent about anything. So there's a lot of propaganda out there.
let's
So
move on.
just saying, like, it's just an objective observation,
It is true.
so it's like
Eh,
I'm not sure how much we could really,
yeah, everything is centered by, or a lot of things are centered by
you
countries
know,
for good and bad reasons. But
or crafted for a particular political reason.
right,
So who
right,
knows?
yeah, who knows? But
But yeah, I would love to see the
yeah.
article, Diana, if you
Well, we
can.
hope it's true.
I mean, if that's great, if there's like any additional tool to fight disease and buy people more time to do things naturally we're fine with that as
Yeah,
long as it doesn't cause more harm than good, right?
yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. All right,
Mhm.
so now let's move into stress and you said something else. Stress
Well, stress and
and
spirituality.
spirituality. Yes.
Um, so a lot of people, a lot of us hear the word stress, and I think there's one stress that we don't understand. When we have family members that are not doing well or sick, we worry about it. That is a form of stress. And because it's something we think about, it's something we remember, it's something we internalize, and that's stress. You know, money issues, other life issues. The war that's taking place now, all these people who are getting killed, including women and children. And we may think about it proactively or not, but it's still stressful because, it's death and destruction. And it may not be here in the United States, but we know that it can happen here because of what happened with 9/11, what's happened, with Pearl Harbor. We know anything can happen. And so we may stress intentionally or unintentionally. And that's emotion. That's the feelings we have about things that are external to us that we bring internal to us. We bring it into our minds and it affects us in some ways very deeply. And when that happens, what happened is that our bodies produce a lot of the stress hormones like cortisol. And if we continue to stress about any of those things or all of those things, both family and friends and our children and grandchildren and work and all these things, that cortisol is kept being produced. And then the pituitary gland in our brain and the hypothalamus glands, they're not able to control the stress because now they're supposed to regulate stress hormones and now they're broken down because they're being overworked. This flow of stress hormones are just like a river that doesn't stop flowing.
Mm.
And what cortisol does and other stress hormones, those are chronic inflammation over time because our bodies can't get rid of it. It's now overwhelming our bodies. It damages our DNA. It damages our genes. It damages our metabolic system we just talked about. It damages because it's inflammation. It's actually inflammation as in bad chemicals. So the cortisol have now become bad chemicals. They're cells. They're cells. They're molecules. They're true. They're real. Like you can touch them. That's why they can be measured in a lab report. So they start damaging the genes, the DNA, the metabolic system, the digestive system, especially the immune system. What do you think happened when that happens? So a lot of you ladies who have hormonal issues, because cortisol is a hormone, and when the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus, when they start producing the regulatory hormones to control the stress hormones, they're producing it at the rapid pace as well, and those pile up as well. So what happened with a lot of women and men, for ladies, that's one of the reasons, probably one of the main reasons, ladies, you get fibroids, you get ovarian cysts, especially at a young age. We have had a lot of girls in their teens with fibroids and menstrual irregularities and anemia and all these issues. And if it continues, if these hormones keep being produced, and by the way, the fact of the hormonal imbalance is a new form of stress on your bodies called oxidative stress, meaning that the inflammation now is damaging the soul of the cell where energy is produced. So now you have the one stress leading to other stress, and there are other stress. I'm only going to talk about two today. So for a lot of ladies, that's why in the end you started with menstrual irregularities, or you become anemic because of heavy menstrual. Even as teenagers into your 20s and your 30s, you develop fibroids, you develop ovarian cysts, you develop dense breasts, you develop thyroid issues. For a lot of you, also have pituitary gland issues. That's one of the main, if not the number one reasons why you get these issues. And when you start having these issues, ladies, in these organs, all those tumors like fibroids and cysts and dense breasts, they are now producing even more inflammation in your body. And that's why eventually, if they're not corrected, they lead to cancer. Yes, Joe.
I was gonna say my metaphor, so that way people can have a way to frame what you're saying. So, for example, think about using a credit card or getting a loan. So, you are budgeting your finances, right? The cash on hand that you have from your paycheck, but maybe you overspend. You make a few reckless decisions, or costs go up and there's nothing you can do about it. So, you need to spend more than you can earn. Okay, so like that's the original stress.
Mhm.
Let's say that period passes or costs go down, or you realize you made a bad choice and now you tighten up for a few weeks and things regulate. Okay, that's like a normal stress to the system, right? Whereas, like, let's say for example, you get in a fight with your husband and you feel really angry, but you breathe, you talk it out, you move on. Okay, expected stress, not something that's going to kill you. The fact that you've healed from it, you breathe, you move on, the stress goes away. But let's say costs don't come down, or you keep making lots of bad decisions. You keep doing those installment payment plans and you don't realize how many of them you're signing up for. And now you've spent more than you earn. So now you need to you have the stress, it's not going away. Now you need to get use a credit card or get a loan to continue to live your life.
Mhm.
Okay? So now you get this influx of help. But what does that help come with? It comes with interest. And interest now becomes debt. This is what is going to get you. Because now, even when that initial stressor alleviates, let's say the costs come down or you realize you've been reckless and now you tighten up a bit, you're trying to pay back what you borrowed, but the interest is piling up. The interest creates the debt. The debt becomes the disease that you get diagnosed with.
Mhm.
So, like Aston is saying, it's not that initial stressor that usually should just be temporary, go away. Your body knows how to be resilient against that temporary inflammation, and then it calms it down, it clears it out, you reset. But when it stays and it stays, in this case, it will then create these secondary problems, like Aston was explaining. The hormonal issues eventually affect the energy centers of the cell, the mitochondria, from creating the energy that you need to perform all these functions. And now you're not able to perform functions that you otherwise would. So the problem starts cascading, the
Mhm.
dominoes start falling, right? So when you think about stress like that in the body in the sense of finances, right, the debt you have becomes the disease, not the initial bad decision that you made that you could have recovered from. So that's how I see it in my mind.
That's the way it is, and it spirals unless you step in, which we're gonna talk about spirituality next. Um, so when you come to us, ladies and gentlemen, with prostate, it's the same process for prostate. But for some reason, ladies have it worse. Ladies have like 5 organs that are decimated by chronic inflammation. Just begin from the top to the bottom. The thyroid gland, the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the breast glands, the ovaries, the uterus. Those are any one of those can lead to the most chronic, disease any woman could have. And for a lot of women who come to us, they have more than one. And so their health and their lives are even more gravely imperiled. So those of you who are listening to us now, everything I'm saying to you is true. And I don't believe that there's any medical doctor who would dispute that, or any, and I'm not even going to say doctors, any scientists or physicists who would dispute that in any way or form. So, guys, the same thing with the prostate. So, when you come to us and we make a recommendation as to what you should do, you can't just fix one thing to get the help you need. You have to fix a lot of different things. And for for Jill's mom, Jill mentioned her mom. The way I think of her is that she she has pretty good genes to begin with. I don't know if many people who have had stage 4 cancer and live this long. I don't, can't speak for you all, but what I can say for her is that she has fought, you know, perfection is not required. Is working hard to do the best you can. It's not perfection. It's not the perfect diet, perfect lifestyle, perfect, 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 perfect. Not taking NuSpecies every single day. I don't know if anyone can do that, but those who can do that, they tend to fare better. But perfection, we're not saying that perfection is required.
Perfection is the enemy of progress.
We're saying that work hard at it and try to be very consistent with your fight, whether it's blood pressure or something else. But for your mom, I think where she is, she's at a point now where she has what I mentioned to you a week ago, Joe, that I think your mom is at the place that is called immune-mediated equilibrium, where her immune system
Let's say that again.
Mediated equilibrium are balanced.
So let's break that down.
So what it means is that the immune system is strong enough to prevent it from getting worse. So it's a war going on. It's a tug of war going on, and they're at a balance with each other. One is not overtaking the other, and that's the equilibrium. And I think, what we would like, what she would love, she would like is for the immune system to supersede, push whatever the issue is across the border or the issues across the border. And so the immune can have more dominance, immune supremacy, I think is what, all of us need, including her. But at least she's at the point of that equilibrium where her body is fighting because, I think she has very good genes and she's fighting really hard. But anything more on metabolism, hormones,
immune system, mitochondria? I think you could tell a little bit more about mitochondria. I think that's really interesting. I was saying ribosomes. Apparently, I'm wrong. That's what I remember from my science class in like sixth grade. Mary remembers ribosomes. Aston says ribosomes.
We don't have enough time.
He said he looked it up and it's ribosomes. We don't have time to get into mitochondria.
I think we should say mitochondria for cool. It should be a whole program.
A whole program about mitochondria?
Yes.
We're going to need a slide deck.
I think mitochondria is the most important piece of information about human life and human health. Probably as important as a genome.
Outside of genome, it's like as root cause as you get.
Yeah. It is.
Okay, sorry we didn't get to that. I thought we were going to get to
No.
Today,
we have a lot to share with you. We have a whole lot over the next year. If you have any questions
so far, please bring it up. I wanted to say about the immune-mediated equilibrium. Oh, and you were saying like, okay, so your body is fighting and many people can live stably with a deadly disease.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to that equilibrium, you can live to 90, 100, or even over 100 years old.
Right. So what's interesting is, it's like, well, what will really tip the scales in your favor to get your immune system to, like you said, actually eradicate the disease or the problem? And that is where I think a lot of people who work with NuSpecies or who are researching all sorts of natural healing and, especially when you're doing the research and you're learning, which is like, I said, my mom does, she's just nonstop learning and researching and, which is interesting because like she's got us. But still, when you're sick and you're scared.
Mommy, I'm sorry that we talk about you today. We had no plans of doing it. It just came out of nowhere.
But you're always on our minds. So it's a good example. Like we experience this in our personal lives as well as when we work with all of you. So everyone has their thing. We all are going through it in one way or another. But when you're scared and you're sick, it is, you feel like you need to do everything and anything to make sure that, because you just don't know what's really going to make the difference, what's going to tip the scales in my favor.
I think I know one thing that's helping your mother to tip the scale. And I think one of the reasons why your mother is still alive is because she loves her family. I don't think I have come across anyone, maybe my mother, not my father, never my grandmother. My grandmother doesn't love anybody. She kicked all her kids out by the time they were teenagers. She kicked them out before they were 15, all of them. Some of them came to live. I want to tell you the whole story.
But actually,
but your
yeah.
mom, as long as I've known her about 19 years now. 18 years. And I really have never come across anyone who truly, genuinely love her family so much.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's not just love, because we all say we love our family.
There's a spiritual element to that we're going to talk about.
Well,
maybe not today,
but I just want to give the context, which is that it's not just that, because we all love our family, or we know most of us, I guess,
her love is
love our family. But my family is unique in that if I wanted to have a family dinner tomorrow, I can gather 40 people by tomorrow, because we all live like within an hour of each other. Most of us live within 20 minutes of each other.
And it's blasphemy if you don't show up. And blasphemy in this family if you don't show up.
And so not only does my mom love her family, but they are the water that she swims in. Like, they are her life, and we're all always there. And yeah, I mean, she can't imagine doing anything without all her siblings and now all her children and grandchildren.
Now she has grandchildren, and what I see with her now that she has grandchildren, her love for her grandchildren, you thought she loved her siblings, right? Right. Multiply that by probably 10 for her grandchildren. And I'm speaking factually. Our children, especially Geo and Nova. Leo he's wayward. He's different when they will introduce him to you. But when it comes to Geo and Nova, in their early years, we really bought clothes for them. Your mother is always coming in with a bag.
Oh, yes.
A bag of dresses, a bag of clothes for Geo, for Nova. And I would say to myself privately, why is she spending so much of her money?
Well, he was her first grandson.
I think that love is more powerful and spiritual. And especially if you have it inside of you and you share it. I believe in all of the science, all of the physics and chemistry I know, which is quite a bit. That's what we're going to talk about, spirituality. Maybe not now, we're out of time. Maybe next week you all tune in and tell friends and family to tune in. We're going to talk about spirituality.
But receiving and giving love,
and we're going to talk about
life force, is a circulatory system of its own.
It is nourishing.
Yes.
It is power. It is the ultimate power. And I'm going to leave this with you all. It is so powerful that it is like a lifeline for all of us. And studies have shown that people who lack love and compassion and empathy, they live shorter lives. In fact, a lot of them end up taking their own lives.
Yeah.
Studies have shown that. You all should go research that. Don't ask me to do that work for you all. You can do that.
Well, fear, which a lot of us tend to default to fear because it feels safe, right? Fear is important. It definitely helps us to identify a threat and avoid a threat. But fear causes fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Right.
Whereas love is, like Aston said, nourishing. Giving and receiving love is the most powerful force out there, spiritually, physically. It is incredibly healthy, and it doesn't have to be. You don't have to have children or a family like my mom's to give and receive love. You can give and receive love and compassion to strangers, to organizations,
your community,
where
you live. You know, there are elders there, there are children there. Love is pervasive. It's immutable.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to talk about that next week. But I want to give you one piece to start with, and it's going to come back to health. It's going to come back to why NuSpecies has developed stress management, which includes spiritual health, mental health. We're going to talk more about that. But what we have done, we have gone back through history especially me, and look back at the first people who I think all anthropologists and scientists now believe that the first people were they lived in Africa. They're Africans, and thus the first um, spirituality. And it seemed like the spirituality going back over 100,000 years was sacred and divine. We're going to talk about what sacred and divine really mean. It's not what you probably think. We're going to talk about that and trace it back to now. Actually, we're going to trace it back to the Kushite Kemites. I have those videos on YouTube. You should watch them if you haven't. But sacred spirituality began by the Africans. Scientists agree, and it ended in Africa. It seemed to have ended in ancient Egypt by a pharaoh called Akhenaten. And it seemed like the world from that pharaoh, it seemed like the world has now followed that pharaoh to this day. And some of you may wonder why there's so much war and destruction of women and children and innocent in the land of God. It could be part of that because the land of God was once governed by that pharaoh, by the ancient Egyptians and the Kushites. So we're going to talk about that and bring it back to mental health and spiritual health and how each one of us in our own personal life can live healthy spiritually, physically, mentally, and live better and live longer. We'll bring it all together. I think it requires maybe at least 1 or 2 seconds to do that, to do it properly.
So last question is from Trevor. He says he's planning to take a full body MRI. What do you think?
I think that everybody should do a full body MRI with contrast once or twice yearly.
Everybody?
I think so. I think having that chemicals, you can flush it out. It can cause issues, but because of the toxic world we live in, because of the toxic foods we're exposed to, it can take 6 months to a year for us to grow cysts and tumors. And we need to know we have them so we can fight them. So it's only because of the toxicity of the world, the foods, the water, everything around us is toxic. Everything. And a lot of us think we're eating healthy foods because that apple is an apple and it's supposed to have vitamins and minerals. But how many of us know what was used to preserve that apple before we bought it in the store? All those adulterated chemicals that are used in fruits and vegetables. So if the world was more spiritual, speaking of spiritual, meaning that have compassion and love and caring for one another, I don't believe that we will be using those chemicals in foods and selling it to people. But the world is not.
Well, ideally, like, we do still need to eat produce. We're not going to just go eat processed food.
No, I'm not saying we shouldn't eat it. It's,
yeah.
well,
ideally by organic when you can, local when you can.
It's all we have. We're in New York.
We need the fiber.
We're in New York. Unless we start growing our own apple trees and all of that.
You can, but you have to go to the farms where they hopefully don't spray them and stuff.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm not saying you shouldn't eat fruits and vegetables. Just those that are
still the best we're working with.
They're still the best we have, so we have to eat them. And what you do, you drink lots of water and exercise and take your NuSpecies and put yourself in the best position to at least get to some equilibrium. Yes, we're consuming, breathing, and drinking all these stuff that are toxic, poisonous to our bodies, to our genes, but we're also building up our bodies to fight it because we know it's there. So we can have our own degree or spectrum of equilibrium in terms of our immune system fighting whatever we have growing inside of us.
And that's kind of like, here's the shameless plug for NuSpecies formulas, which is that we go to extreme lengths to put organic ingredients in our formulas, to not add anything else that for preservation or flavor in order to preserve their natural and healthy components. So that's why they're not going to taste good and they're not going to smell good, because it's just like pure nature in a bottle in liquid form so that you can digest it really easily. And so I often just think about, well, when everything else is going wrong, at least I've got this one thing that's right, and it's going to fight against things, help me fight against things better, sometimes better than others, depending on what I'm going through. But at least it's a constant that I always have that I can rely on. And I am really grateful to you for creating these formulas for this company, and all of you who support NuSpecies so that I continue to have access to our formulas, because without all of you supporting NuSpecies, I wouldn't have access to them either. So I that's like a little shameless plug there, because it's true. And it's a good little warrior to have by your side on your counter every day.
On that note, to end or over time, as you were saying that, I remember in those early years when people were taking NuSpecies and they hated the taste, how much we tried to find a way to use something to make it the formula taste better. We look at mango and pineapple and all those things, and discover that there would have to be chemicals,
natural flavors
made in labs, and
yeah.
And then we came to the decision that, pardon me for saying it, take it or leave it. It tastes the way it tastes. That's the way God makes it.
Save your gummy vitamins for dessert.
But we could not find anything that was natural that we could add to make it
our
taste
standard
better.
of natural, because there is no formal definition of natural, at least from the FDA, but our standard of natural. But you all know that, and that's why you're here. And if you're new to us and you didn't know that, well, now you do. And we hope you will call us or engage further. And we will be back next Saturday at 10 a.m. to do this again. If you want to download our app so you can submit questions at any time, find out about last-minute store closures or late openings or anything happening with business hours, you can always see that on our app. We do have a version of this show on the app. It's a podcast, so that I just extract the audio after we do the show and I put it onto the app like a podcast. So those of you who are trying to share our show with others who maybe drive a lot and can't watch YouTube, you can just let them open the app and watch and listen to the show, listen to the audio.
Could I say what you just said a little bit more slowly?
Sure.
If you like our NuSpecies content right now, please give us a review. How can they give a review?
So the best way, I guess, would be to, if you've used our formulas, to go to our website, logged in, and write a review on the products you've used, because that helps other people shopping our products have an immediate feedback on what they're about to buy. That would be amazing. If you prefer to just do a generic review of NuSpecies, even if all you want to say is, I love NuSpecies, or how long you've been with us, you can do that on Google. As our website forces you to pick a product to review, Google's going to force you to pick a location to review. You can pick Pawling, Bronxville, or Elmont. That's fine. And then I guess the last way would be to go to our Facebook page and put a formal review, not in the comments of a post, but like the actual review section of Facebook. You could do that there. Mary's showing you here on the screen where you can review a product. That would be amazing. You could put the review right there on our page.
And if someone hasn't taken NuSpecies, but they love what we do and they love our content, is it the same process to give us a review?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
If someone has not taken NuSpecies products or formulas, but they love our content.
Right. Yeah, just say that.
Same thing?
You could just say, I don't even have to use the products because their education alone helps me be healthier. That is amazing as well. Anything that gives people feedback to know that that NuSpecies is the real deal and it's worth someone else looking into, especially if they're scared and they're suffering and they're looking for a solution and they don't want to have to go through a bunch of false starts while their health gets worse. Help them speed that process up by just telling them what they need to know about NuSpecies, so they are more likely to just trust us quicker and get this process going and get the help that they need.
So next week we will talk about stress and spirituality,
And
and how
mitochondria?
we can add in mitochondria. Yes, we can add it in. I think we're going to need another week
Okay.
or two because
Well, we're here every week, so we've got time.
yeah, I'd like us to really give the details. I want you to be able to taste it and then do your own research. And I think when you do that, you are going to take more, strong actions to help yourselves and help your family and friends and the community to be stronger. That's the whole point of all this education we do, is to make you better so you can make others better, whether friends or family. All right.
All right.
I
Well,
think this is how we end. So have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll see you again next Saturday.
good
Bye
night.
bye.